What's up, everybody? It's Dave Fernape here with another NPL interview. Today I am here with the coach of the Toronto Staraptors, Jolt from the Token Minorities.
What's going on, guys? Jolt here from the Token Minorities, and I am happy to be here.
And we're happy to have you too. How are you doing today?
Oh, thanks. I am doing just fine. I actually woke up at about 2 p.m. today, so I had a pretty nice long sleep, and I'm feeling great.
That's great. I actually had to go to school for a half of
Oh,
day.
that's unfortunate. I've been out of school. I actually graduated a little over a week ago now,
Well,
so I'm in pretty good shape. Yeah,
that gives you tons of time to focus on Pokemon
right. Exactly.
and this season. So, are you excited for this season?
Definitely, yeah. I think the level of competition this season is higher than it's ever been in the past. So, and I thought last year was really good too. So I'm definitely pretty pumped to play against a bunch of these pretty darn good players and see what I can do.
It's probably increased a lot since I left, but okay.
Yes, it's causation.
So, about last season, you made it to the finals and you lost to Trev. How are you proud of that, or did you want a little bit more?
Well, for anyone who's actually watched the battle, I assume you have, Dave. You would know that the game didn't exactly end how the odds said it should have ended, in that it was like a 2% chance of my losing at the end. So I'm not exactly pleased with that outcome, and I definitely think I could have and should have won the championship. And with that said, that's obviously going to be my goal this season, is to finish what I started last year. And yeah, I feel like I'm in a good position to do that too.
That's great. So this season, the league has implemented a salary cap. How do you think that has affected the draft? Do you think it's been positive? Do you think it's been negative? How do you like it?
I think a lot of people do like it. Personally, I prefer the open draft just because I'm much more familiar with like higher tier mons, like OUs especially, a little bit more UU. And the point system kind of forced me to draft stuff that's not in those tiers. For example, Piloswine and Nosepass, kind of a gimmicky mon anyways, but then Ditto as well. Those are things that I would never draft in an open draft just because there's always better OU and UU options left. So in general, I do prefer the open draft just because it fits my play style more, and I do prefer to have a more powerful team as opposed to having several like role mons like I had to draft this time around. But I am excited to see how it works, as this is my first point system draft I've ever done, so I don't really have much experience with that yet.
Without a salary cap, it would make it easier for you to get, a core like, I don't know, maybe Megaladios with Clefable or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good example.
So, you obviously have a really high-end cap team. While you were drafting, did you feel that, like in the middle, you kind of got worried that you would kind of run out of cap?
So, yeah, I did kind of have some worries, mainly because when I did my first wheel picks, Clefable was an option, and while it was 1 point more than Sylveon, I actually opted to go for Sylveon. And the issue is, with me being more of a bulky offense player, Clefable's almost a necessity in terms of denying setup sweepers, I guess is the best way to put it, or just trying to persuade my opponents to not really build setup sweeper heavy teams. And whenever I didn't pick Clefable and picked up Sylveon instead, that put a lot of pressure on my draft selections later on in the draft, in that I had to get some things that would help deter setup sweepers. So just in general, picking up Sylveon early put a lot of pressure on me late in terms of what I actually could pick up in order to make an acceptable team. And with the smaller amount of cap room left over later in the draft, that just kind of made that whole situation a little bit tougher for me. But I do think I managed it pretty well, especially in picking up Ditto, as that kind of fits the role of what Clefable would have been on my team anyways. So yeah, overall cap wasn't too big of an issue, but it was just tough managing through it for the first time ever. And I still think my team came out pretty okay, so I'm happy with it.
Do you have any regrets in specific?
I mean, the Clefable, I probably should have picked up Clefable when it was there, but I decided to, try something a little bit different this season just so that I can spice it up a little bit. I want to have fun with it too. I'm not just in it to win it. I'm here to also have some fun. So I wanted to try Sylveon this time.
Speaking of other cool Pokemon, you drafted Ditto. I heard that was specifically to snipe Trev. Is that true?
No, not at all, but I'm glad I did snipe Trev. I'll do anything to make him a little bit upset. But Ditto, kind of like I alluded to earlier, is mainly there to just deter setup sweepers, since I don't have the on my team this time around, and I do still want to be able to like more bulky cores like Mega Venusaur, Sylveon, Empoleon, for example. I'll need some sort of something to deny setup sweepers, and that's going to be Ditto's job in those situations. So I have my reasons for selecting Ditto for sure.
And what about Lucario? Last season, it straight up like swept Cheese Boy, and it put in a lot of work. So making you want to get it again, it was interesting because a lot of people they don't look at Lucario as like a high-end Pokemon that you franchise or something, or worth paying like a lot of cap for. It was surprising to some people.
Yeah, I like Lucario because of its versatility and priority options, and with all of the talk in the preseason of people making sure that Clefable, whenever it's my draft pick, I wanted to make sure that I had a really strong priority option. So that was really the primary reason why I decided to go ahead and franchise Lucario, but the versatility is also a big plus for having it. And really, if I didn't franchise Lucario, I guess I would have been more likely to go ahead and take Clefable with the first wheel pick, but because I had the strong priority already, I decided that Sylveon was okay. But yeah, I do think Lucario is still going to be pretty darn good this season.
We've also seen some other Pokemon that you picked that are kind of people think are underwhelming and don't look in high regards, like Salamence, but we saw last season, Salamence is a threat. It forces an ice type to be brought, or an ice move. And also one that caught my eye a lot, and it caught Trev's eye specifically. He wanted Ditto specifically for Cloyster. What made you choose Cloyster, which is generally unpopular?
This is something that I don't want to give out too much information on, just because like I got Cloyster for more than its standard movesets, but I will say that the King's Rock set could come this season multiple times, and my opponents should definitely be prepared for that.
So that's pretty scary to think. Also, there's Azelf, and Azelf's cousin, Yuxi, looks like a croissant. Have you ever noticed that?
No, but now that you mention it, I see it.
And I'm sure that's definitely what influenced your draft pick, but are you planning on running any sets? Because Azelf is pretty versatile.
Yeah, the primary reasoning behind picking up Azelf for me was just its speed tier, because I was a relatively slow draft before that selection, outside of the obvious choice users like Victini or maybe even Salamence. But its versatility is also something that I'm looking forward to using. I did draft it back in Season 2. It was only on my team for like 1 week there before I traded it for Tornadus T. But I do think it has a lot of potential in the format, and I think that Matty Brawlick used it very well last season. And overall, I just felt like it fit my team quite well this time around. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to give it a try. That's what a lot of my draft is this season, is just giving some things a try that I haven't given an opportunity to yet, and mixing them with some mons that I have some experience with. And yeah, we're just going to kind of see what I can do.
I made Matty Brawlick's thumbnails last season, most of them, and about, like, I don't know, 80% of them, he told me Azelf was the #1 Pokemon to put on there. So obviously Azelf did put in a lot of work, and it's pretty good, and it has a huge moveset.
Yeah, it can just do so much. It's really comparable to Infernape in my eyes, just minus the priority options. I think Infernape's a little bit better, quite a bit better actually, but with my team lacking a speedy psychic type, I thought that it was a really good fit for me. Plus, its ability to run U-turn, I think is going to be pretty important for a team like mine. I'll be definitely using some momentum team builds throughout the season, so we'll see what happens.
Okay, well, I'm gonna stop, ignoring the elephant in the room and just address the thing in your draft, the huge shock, the laughing stock, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Could it perhaps be Nosepass?
No, it's the fact that you named your Piloswine Styx.
Sorry, I'm losing it. Well, okay, so I don't really have a great explanation for that, no more than just wanting to make fun of Styx a little bit. But I'm also currently I'm doing a tournament with the CPC, another draft league, and in that league I have a Skuntank that I also decided to name Styx. So it's more just me poking fun at my channel buddy because he's definitely earned it for all the times he's tried to poke fun at me. So that's about all there is to it.
And you also have a nose. You have a nose.
I do have a nose.
Pretty big nose.
Yes.
Now we can obviously tell that you ran out of cap space at the end and you only had 1 million left. So you decided to, of course you have to get a low Pokemon, and you probably wanted something, maybe hazards or something, that will have a use, because that's all you can basically do with 1 million cap. So yeah. You opted for Nosepass over everything.
That's another one of those things that I don't want to give too much information on. If an opponent is not familiar with that particular set, and I bring it, then I want it to work. And if they know what the set is, then obviously it's not going to work as well. But it does have a use outside of just laying Stealth Rocks, and its sturdy ability is obviously pretty useful as well. But it's not a nothing. I'll say that it's worth preparing for an opponent.
I mean, a lot of other people say that there's more useful things you could have gotten. Some people say Onyx. Personally, I disagree. Onyx has a lower attack stat than Oddish, but we don't need to mention that. And then other Pokemon like Geodude or just random things like that.
Now, there's very few Pokemon that even I would consider bringing in the 1 million range, and I believe Nosepass actually is something that could see use. Another thing I considered was Pineco, just because it can run like a Berry Juice set with a lot of hazards, but I opted for Nosepass for reasons that will become apparent sometime this season.
Well, on your team we see, defensive Pokemon like Sylveon, Mega Venusaur, and Polion, and then we see full-on just straight up offense like Lucario and Polion, Lucario and Victini and just Salamence. And what play style are you more leaning to? Because a lot of people seem have the impression that you like hardcore stall, maybe doing something with the timer or something, abusing nothing.
I might have done that once, but no, I'm definitely a bulky offense player at heart. My draft more looks balanced, at least from my perspective right now, in that I have a solid defensive core, options with the defensive core between Sylveon, Mega Venusaur, and Polion, Salamence even. And as far as balance, or offensive, Lucario, Victini, Cloyster, and Polion and Salamence definitely can both be offensive mons. Sylveon with the Specs or Scarf set, both are very strong. But overall, my builds will generally be bulky offense just because that's my most comfortable play style. But through my experience with my team last season, I've found that hyper offense is generally going to always be a good option for any particular match, just because your opponent is forced to do the preparation. In that case, you're generally just dishing off big hits and your opponent has to find a way to deal with them. So there's definitely merit to using my draft in a hyper offensive manner as well. So with that said, I do think my draft can go really any direction in terms of play style outside of stall. Stall is terrible in the format, so I would never do that. But I'm a bulky offense player, but my draft can do pretty much anything.
Fog probably thinks that stall is wonderful, but
it's terrible. There's a reason Fog went 1-11. Or 1-10 rather.
Darn. So what is the favorite Pokemon that you drafted?
For nostalgic purposes, I have to say Mega Venusaur. I used it both in Season 2 and Season 3 to pretty good success outside of an unfortunate Sleep Powder miss. But outside of Mega Venusaur, I think Cloyster is something I'm really excited to use just because of the movesets it can run that, like I said before, I don't really want to reveal. But Cloyster has a lot of options that I'm excited to exploit. And really, the funny thing is, to me, Cloister's probably the mon that fit the least on my team whenever I drafted it, because it does have several weaknesses that are like duplicated from what I already had at that point. So with that in mind, Cloister may not have been the best pick for me, but it's just something that I really wanted to use because I've recently been exposed to some of its additional potential. So Cloister Mega Venusaur definitely who I'm most excited to use.
If you didn't want to miss Sleep Powder, you can obviously go for, like Magical Leaf.
Oh, Magical Leaf, yes, there it is. Or maybe even like knockoff Earthquake, that'll work, right? Do the same job.
Of course.
Or Grass Whistle, let's do that.
I'm pretty sure that's less accurate, but okay.
I know you're right.
So, moving on from your draft to the actual battling in the league, would you say that you have a rivalry going with Trev?
I think my true rivalry is with Cheese, kind of like he mentioned in his interview. It's more of a friendly rivalry, in that Cheese has outplayed me once or twice in the format, and I've outplayed him once or twice in the format. So, like, we both, I believe our record is actually dead even in the format. So that's, in my opinion, the definition of a rivalry, especially when you have battles that aren't really, that can't be attributed to hacks, like determining the outcome. Whenever it comes to me versus Trev, it's a little bit of a different story. Some people will call these Johns, but I believe that Trev has not yet outplayed me in a league match. He has won a few of them, but there has been a reason for each of them. I'll go through them briefly. In Season 2, the first game he won because I miscounted encore turns, and it caused me to fall way behind in the battle. In the playoffs, I lost because I essentially choked when I shouldn't have. And then did we play last season? Yeah, we played week 1 in Season 3, and I won that game. Really wasn't much hacks involved that game, so I was pretty pleased with that. And then last season, obviously, the finals was not exactly ideal. So I don't want to say I have a rivalry with Trev yet, because I want him to outplay me first. And I don't want that to sound like conceited or anything, but I want him to outplay me before I consider it a rivalry.
Well, you're going to be playing again versus Trev week 1. Mm-hmm. So Toronto versus Atlanta, the big birds going at it.
Yep.
So, how do you prep yourself up for those types of matches, those high-end, big players, big boy plays matches?
Mm-hmm. Well, I basically just go through my same prep routine, so it's not really any different than if I were facing someone who had like below 5. For me, at least, I still scout my opponent. I still spend hours team building, and then I test the team several times. So preparation itself isn't terribly different. It's just a matter of being ready for the level of play that Trev is capable of, and I feel like I've played him enough at this point to have a good understanding of how he wants to play. And really, his draft is looking pretty good overall, so it's definitely going to be a challenge to prep for, but I do believe I'm up for that challenge as well.
How do you plan on facing Atlanta's big threats, such as Pokemon that you had last season, Megaladios, Manaphy, Terrakion, even Entei, and of course the hard-hitting Excadrill? What's your plan for that?
Well, obviously I can't give too much information on that, just because I don't want him to listen to this and have a good idea of how I want to prepare. But I've already kind of flashed this idea at Trev, so I don't mind bringing it up here. Again, Cloister with a King's Rock can put in a lot of work this week if I so choose, and I do believe that Trev has earned a bit of a hexing coming from my side, so that's something that may just be coming in that battle. But kind of like I said before, I do think that I'll be able to prepare a team that is capable of beating Trev, and it's just a matter of if, 1, I play well, and 2, if RNG doesn't decide to get in my way again. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited for the match, though. I think it'll be a pretty good one.
Well, your division, you're playing against 2 teams that are actually new to the NPL, and then you're playing against somebody who enjoys to hacks people. So, how do you feel about your division? Are you confident? Do you think you're going to win it? Do you think there's a bigger threat in there than any other division?
I feel confident with my division. Yeah, my goal is always to win my division. That's been my goal every single season I've been in the NPL, so that's what I'm going to try to do this season as well. As far as like how threatening I feel like my division is, I know all three of them are good players. Razor doesn't have as much success in League format, but I know he's been steadily improving, and his draft is actually very, very strong. With having Megalodios on the team, that's really all he needs to have a strong draft. But also Thunderous Therian is looking like a pretty big threat to my team. So my matchup against Razor will be challenging to say the least, but I think I can handle him through my own preparation. And as far as Palm and Rob, both of those are players that I don't have much of a read on yet in terms of their playstyle. So I'll need to do a lot of scouting and preparation on my own to make sure I'm prepared for those matches. But again, I think I'll be able to come out on top, at least in like half the battles against them, to the point where I'm able to pull off a divisional victory. So yeah, I'm hoping I'll be able to advance to the playoffs by winning my division again.
Who would you say is the hardest opponent you have to face this season?
Dylan, by far. Sydney Sharpedos. He's a Gypsy, one of the newer coaches, or one of the new coaches in the league. And first of all, his draft is fantastic. Having Mega Pinsir, Weavile, and Zapdos, all three, and Mew even, all four things that I feel could give my team a lot of trouble. And just on top of that, I honestly think he's quite possibly the best player in the format I've ever faced, if not in the top 2 or 3. And that's saying something. So I think he's going to do very well this season. And probably that match is the one I'm looking forward to the most, just because of the challenge I know it presents.
Well, my last question for you is, what is your favorite Pokemon? It doesn't have to be competitive, just your favorite Pokemon in general.
Is that Wobbuffet? No explanation necessary.
Were you thinking about at any point drafting Wobbuffet?
Yeah, the only issue for me was that there were things that I felt I needed more, and due to, I guess, having Victini in the first round kind of hurt my chances of actually wanting to grab Wobbuffet later, because I don't like to double up on too many of the same type, and by the time when I got to drafting Azelf, obviously that would be my second Psychic type, and I needed Azelf for its speed tier and ability to use Stealth Rock. So when I had Victini and Azelf, I was out of points to get Wobbuffet, but also even if I had the points, it wouldn't really make much sense to draft Wobbuffet on this team. Plus, I feel like people already kind of understand my gig with Wobbuffet, so it wouldn't be quite as effective the third time around having it on my roster. So it's more a matter for me of spreading out the threats that I'm comfortable using to the point where people won't be as comfortable against them whenever I do have them on my team.
Why not only 1 million?
It was 2 million. Otherwise, I would have gotten it 100%.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, that stinks, because we could have had Sunkern 2.0.
You bet. No, it definitely would have come. And it's actually not too bad. I had a small argument with Styx actually during the draft about whether or not Why Not was viable, and like he showed me some calcs that it actually takes a lot of the hits that Wobbuffet does with like the same amount. Like for example, we were talking about Gengar's Shadow Ball, and the difference between the damage output is less than 1%. So it's very comparable to Wobbuffet actually. The only difference being that it can really only run a Violite. It can't really take advantage of cut stat berry sets or like resist berries and that kind of thing as well, because it is pretty dependent on the Violite. But yeah, Why Not's viable, and I'm kind of surprised it never was taken with some of the remaining change in some of the coaches' salaries.
Well, I guess that's why Styx is a Piloswine.
I agree 100%.
So yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no problem.
Good luck this season.
I appreciate it.
And this has been Dave Fernape with another NPL interview. We will see you next time.